Lots of panels. Okay, it is 9:01, so we will go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Jose Working Group at at IETF 125. This is the IETF note well. You agreed to abide by this by joining any of our mailing lists and also by registering for this meeting. Please be sure that you read it and understand it. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the chairs or the ADs. Speaking of chairs and ADs, I wanted to, this is the first meeting where we have a new chair, so I'd like to acknowledge Michael as our new chair. And I'd also like to thank John Matson, who served for a couple of years as our outgoing chair. There is also IESG leadership changeover at this meeting, but in our case, we will be keeping our AD as Deb Cooley. So going forward, applause in the room. So going forward, Deb will be our AD. And those are the people that you ask if you have any questions about the note well. A few reminders from the IETF meetings people. Be sure that you have signed up for the meeting. Scan the QR code. That's the way that you get in the queue, either locally or remotely. And then the rest of these are reminders for all of the meetings that you will see going forward. Here's some resources that you should probably have already found. In particular, though, if you have any issues, please follow the issue reporting channel. This is our agenda for today. I just realized I neglected to, I mentioned that we needed a minute taker, but I have neglected to actually get a minute taker. Do we have any volunteers for dropping notes into the notes page? Okay. Well, that's okay. We'll combine them with Eric's tool and life will be happy. So Brent has agreed to take some notes for us. Anybody that is participating in the conversation, feel free to check the notes and make sure that your comments are adequately represented. And is there any agenda bashing? Okay. The first document I wanted to mention, I don't think we need to have a lot of conversation on it, but I did want to point out that the HPKE document has been forwarded to the IESG. we believe all of the comments to date have been addressed. And so it's beginning the process of moving through the IESG.
So it is happily in my queue, and it is behind 2 other drafts, though. So
Okay.
it's going to be a minute before I get to it.
No worries. It hasn't been that long since you've gotten it, so mere moments. The second document I was going to mention, the chairs have communicated with Neil. He's not here for this meeting. However, the Jose deprecate none draft has been updated in accordance with the consensus call on the working group that we did around some wording. We believe all of the comments have been accommodated, and the people that made those comments have had an opportunity to review them. So at this point, we would like to move this to working group last call. Are there any thoughts on any questions or comments on that? Oh, sorry. The deprecate none. So it is linked from the agenda as the top document. So, but Neil is not attending this meeting, and so we communicated with him in advance. All right. So those are the first 2 documents. The third document, the next agenda item, which includes 3 documents, are the web proof drafts. Mike, go up for this. I think we have Mike here and David online.
Good morning, all. Thank you for being here. So, yeah, I'm happy that we got the HPKE draft over into Deb's capable hands. I know more topics of that kind will come up shortly, but I'm here at the moment to talk about.
Oh, turn it on.
I'm here. Oh, okay. Apparently my microphone was off. I'm here at the moment to talk about the JSON web proof work with my co-author, David Wade. So we have done some things since we last met our heroes. Not Madrid. We need to fix that. This was Montreal. So one of the things that was noticed in review was we were putting optionally algorithm identifiers in JSON web keys and COSE keys. But this set of algorithms is not in the JSON web algorithms registry or the COSE algorithms registry. It's in a different proof algorithms registry. And so we thought it was inappropriate to use the same identifier in the key. So that we've introduced a proof alg identifier to use instead of alg. It should be non-controversial. I mean, the only thought that I'd ask the working group to consider is, should this be a separate set of algorithms, or should these instead be put into the JSON web algorithms and the COSE algorithms registries, in which case we would revert this change and make a different one. But we took a stab at saying what this would look like if you keep them distinct. DW, who's a master of CI, updated the code that runs every time we build the specification, which generates the examples in such a way that now the inputs are deterministic so that the examples don't keep changing each time we build it, which is useful in terms of not having false diffs that are meaningless between drafts. So all the rest of what I'm going to talk about is things that we might do next. So please pay attention and tell us what you think about the things we might do next. The main thing that has come up from implementers, including Emil Lundberg in Sweden at Yubico and others, is they said, well, you know, if you compare JWP to SDJOT and SDCWT, SDJOT has the ability to disclose part of a claim if it's an array or a structure, as opposed to just disclosing the whole claim, yay or nay. And Emil and maybe DW can tell us who the other implementer was. Two different implementers came up with about the same idea. And so there's an issue, and we are thinking about whether to do this and how we might do it. So, you know, unsurprisingly, some of the claims may be given name you're just going to disclose or not. But address is the classic example of a structured claim in the JOT claims space. There's a corresponding one happening in SPICE for CWT claims. And maybe you don't want to give the party the whole postal address, but maybe you want to give them the country field in the postal address. There's syntax for being able to do that in SDJOT and SDCWT. And there's a proposal to effectively have a claims path in that case. So country within address, and the value would be US. There is not a pull request for this yet. And particularly for those who've worked in this space, we would like to keep this as much like the other things as possible should this go forward. The other thing that's brewing in the space that touches or may touch JWP is, you know, while BBS hasn't finished in the CFRG yet, which is a whole, you know, discussion in itself, the authors nonetheless created multiple extension drafts to BBS that are nowhere near as mature as the core BBS spec. The catch is that to use these extensions, they currently require the verifier to support them, whether the functionality is used or not. So it becomes a code change whether or not these extensions are used. And also it requires a fair amount of setup between the parties to be able to effectively use them. One of them is the BBS blind signatures draft, which allows for messages known only to the holder and not the issuer. And the primary interest is around keys to confirm the holder. So the holder can disclose values to verifiers. However, as I said, we need to decide whether we're going to work on support for this or not, because it would change the shape of how JWP uses BBS if we do. If we do work on this, it'll probably be in its own draft for the time being rather than in the core JSON Web Proofs draft. And there's also per verifier identifiers as the other extension, where you use long-held secrets to generate pseudonyms per verifier. And again, it's still early, but there's some investigation into this. So if you have use cases for using either of these, or you want to say, we're not interested in those things, both would be useful at such point as the BBS draft is final or becomes close to final. We're going to have to decide whether to hold any parts of JWP for that or just to call it done. So that's our brief update. What would any of you here or online like the working group to know? And DW, if I muffed anything or you'd like to add anything, please speak up now.
Who in this room has reviewed the draft?
Brent raises his hand. Brent was an early contributor.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Brent Sundell. I'm the note taker. I can do that. You asked a question about support for extensions. I think supporting BBS signatures without supporting BBS blind signatures is silly. I think blind signatures are core to the whole capabilities that BBS brings to the table. Verifier identifiers, I'm not quite as sold on because of other efforts underway that may not even be compatible with the way BBS is doing things for verifier identification. That's my 2 cents there. So just want to say that.
Thank you. Do any of you have any reading of the tea leaves about how the blind signatures is progressing in the CFRG? Maybe I can ask that. There's 2 CFRG meetings, but.
Okay. John?
John Bradley is an individual. So I agree with Brent that probably BBS without line signatures is not very useful, especially since a lot of the use cases are for different types of pseudonyms that we're seeing in Europe. There is work. Apparently, Germany is sort of come to the conclusion that batch issuance isn't going to work for them. It will not scale. So they're Anya and others are driving BBS work in Etsy. So we need to coordinate some of that better so that Etsy doesn't come up with something different from IETF and JWP. But we have those contacts.
Do you know if Tobias and Vasilis are looped into that, or is this just a parallel universe?
It is the normal Sprind suspects. But I don't know how deeply Tobias is connected to that.
Okay. Thanks, John.
All right, any other questions or comments from Mike and David? I think they're putting a lot of work into these documents. It's time for some of the rest of the working group to review them and help us move them forward. Thank you. Oh, wait, sorry, David's in the queue.
I did have one thing. Since
Go ahead, David.
We had 2 people who brought up interest in the blind signature.
You're really quiet. Get closer to your mic.
Okay. That should be better.
That's not any
No,
better.
it wasn't.
Sounds like you're on the wrong microphone, maybe?
All my microphones got muted yesterday morning. Do you hear me now?
We could hear that, but speak louder than that.
Okay. Since we had several people who were interested in blind signatures, there's knowing that there's a secret value that the holder has. So say something that's escrowed by a wallet in a digital credential use case. There's also having payloads that are basically holder specified and released that were blinded to the issuer. So actual data that's captured in the message. That one's a little bit harder, and I'm experimenting with it, but I could use feedback on whether or not we actually do want to have non-issuer payloads in presentations. Doesn't have to be now.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Thank you again, Mike and
All
David.
right. Thanks all.
Oh, wait, that's, is that right?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Let me get back to the right window for you. All right.
Can I move the slides or you will do it?
Let's see. You
Yeah.
should have, okay.
Yeah, I can move the slides. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'll be talking about the updates to the PQ camps for Cose and Jose draft. So far, we have addressed all the comments received from the working group. The main contention when we presented this last time was whether to use AKP or OKP. I think there was quite good consensus on using AKP. So what we have done in the latest version of the draft is to update it to use AKP, and the draft uses separate algorithm identifiers for both uh, direct key agreement and key wrap. So that way there is context which clearly distinguishes between the two modes. There has been some discussion on whether we need PQ camps for Cose and Jose, and whether we can just leverage the HPKey variant of that. So just we decided to add some clarity in these slides for further discussion. I think this discussion also happened when this draft got adapted, right? And we wanted to have a draft which is independent of HQAKey, that does not have to rely on the new modes that were introduced in Cose and Jose specs. This draft pretty much follows the existing JWE ECDH style key agreement model. It's basically a minimalistic migration path from ECDH ephemeral shared secret to PQCChem. It provides an alternate for deployments that do not require the full feature set of HPKey. And in the recent discussion, Lake Working Group depends on, especially the Cose part of it, right? I think they are using Cose because it's for constrained devices, and they are pretty much relying on this draft, and they've been using it as a reference for migrating from traditional asymmetric crypto to using PQ chems. We don't have any further comments from the working group, so we think the document is ready for working group last call.
Go ahead, John. I don't think it's on. I think it's on now.
So now it's on. I reviewed the draft and I agree it's ready for working group. Let's go.
Thanks, John.
Mike?
Mike Jones. I know we had this discussion a long time ago, but it seems like it's probably time to raise the topic again now. Given we have HPKE and there's a whole suite of post-quantum and post-quantum hybrid algorithms happening in that space, which we can just adopt, and there's other drafts about that. It's not clear to me that this isn't an unnecessary third way of doing the same thing. Why would you use this when you can use the HPKE variants?
Yeah, John, if you, Mike, if you look into the previous slide, right, it's a simple migration, like I said, right? I mean, if you're planning to use, do not want to use the new modes that were introduced, and just wanted to use the GWE ECDH style, then this provides an easy migration path.
But so does HPKE. That doesn't answer the question.
Sorry.
Why would I use this instead of the equivalent HPKE
HPKE and
algorithms?
PQCAMs are different modes, right? I mean, the ECDH style is like CAMS basically, and HPKE is a public key encryption scheme. So they're two different techniques.
I understand that. The question is, why would we support two? Interoperability will be improved if we only support one.
So it all depends on the migration path, right? I mean, if somebody wants to deploy this mode, right, and for instance, I don't want to use HPKE and just want to migrate using CAMS, right? I don't have to be dependent on HPKE. As new algorithms come up, this is an easy migration path.
Since there's two other people in the queue, they might be speaking to the same topic.
John, yeah, what Lake need is a CAM and also an independent CAM that is not bundled together with a lot of other algorithms like AS, GCM, and so on.
Lake needs that for COSI.
Lake needs a COSI algorithm. Then, depending on the COSI message, Lake use the different slightly differently, and some of the messages are further optimized to save bytes. But Lake would need a COSI algorithm registration for a CAM. Yeah, but where it's done is, yeah, that's what.
Brian?
Just to clarify, Lake needs a COSE algorithm registration for some chems, and we're asking the Jose working group for that. That's just a.
Lake, I don't think Lake cannot talk for Lake, but I don't think Lake has asked anybody, but Lake was depending on this draft. This draft was in Jose for both Jose and COSI. Yeah.
Okay.
Just to clarify, this draft is not just specific for Jose, it's also for COSE.
Yeah, I maybe I'm not others don't entirely share this opinion, but I think this is representative of a pretty deep problem of tightly coupling Jose and COSE work in a single document, because the dependencies, like across the board, from the message structures, the algorithm support, to the way it looks, to the dependencies, to the places that use it, to the use cases, are all different. And we get into a lot of problems with tightly binding these two things together, because it couples work in ways that are unnatural and unnecessary. And it also introduces a lot of difficulty in terms of who's looking at the document, who's reviewing it, the expertise working on it, et cetera, et cetera. That said, I want to go back to Mike's point and reaffirm that, like, even, I know we've said here, we've talked about it many times and it's come up, but even in the introduction of this in conjunction with the HPK work, I asked the question, why would we introduce two distinct mechanisms to do effectively the same thing? Not always, but that's often an indication of a problematic design or a problematic approach forward. And it was never really answered. It was just, we're going to do both. So the fact that it's coming up again, I think Mike makes a very good point. There's not a compelling reason to pursue this work as I see it now, other than to cause interoperability problems, to fracture the ecosystem, and other such things. That's putting aside whatever dependencies Lake has. I haven't followed that, but those are Lake needs around COSE work that should be in the COSE group, I guess. I don't know, but this is Jose, and I think the point stands that this work probably shouldn't proceed as is for the Jose part of it.
Go ahead, Hannes.
Yeah, I think this is a discussion we keep having, the relationship between the two working groups. And in some situations, it seems convenient that there's one document for both of the groups. And in other cases, it's a big drama. It's a little bit more overhyped than it actually is to have registrations and descriptions for both cases. But I think John was, in his previous statement, quite clear why he has different design requirements and why he wants this approach. And that's okay. The next person will have another case why they want to have a different algorithm. So I don't see this as dramatic as some others. If you don't want to use it, don't use it.
Mike.
Yeah, Mike Jones again. So before we would do a working group last call on this, I think I would like to have a good discussion on the list of what are the COSE use cases that require this approach as opposed to the HPKE-based approaches, which we'll discuss in upcoming presentations. I mean, the answers I've gotten in the room, I would paraphrase as, well, it's a different mechanism. I know it's a different mechanism. I'm asking why we want that different mechanism here in Jose. Thank you.
Microphone's weird. At the risk of being dramatic again, I do want to point out that there's a real cost to the larger ecosystem of registering algorithms and having interoperability questions about who supports what the registry implies to implementers and users of libraries. Like it's not as simple as, if you don't want to use it, don't use it. There's much broader implications and greater cost to having something registered. So it should be a very intentional choice, not something that we just did because it's different, I guess. I don't know. You greatly oversimplify the implications on the broader deployment ecosystem.
Hannes.
Well, I don't see that greater cost for the whole ecosystem, because not too long ago, in some ecosystems, specifically the OAuth ecosystem, like the need was mostly for digital signatures, and that was not a big issue. That there were other mechanisms, so people just didn't use them and didn't implement them, and that was all good. And we have tons of other specifications that then describe very precisely on when to use the other mechanisms, like we just had a few minutes ago with the JSON web proofs. Just because those exist, it doesn't mean that you have to implement them. You have to do interoperability tests and so on. And now, specifically nowadays, when in days of vibe coding and AI, when implementation costs pretty much go down to zero, for those things. I fear it's even less dramatic. Like in a year ago or two, probably people could have said, "Oh, big drama! I now need to spend months and months implementing some of that stuff." That's not true anymore.
Philip?
Library sizes and bundle sizes are directly dependent on the number of algorithms that you have available. So saying that implementation is cheap because of AI is it's just besides the point. The fragmentation of the ecosystem is real, because you're gonna end up with implementations, like you said, that chose one and didn't want to use the other, and others that did something a little bit different. And then, of course, you've got those interop problems where two libraries or two system components cannot talk to one another, because one chose HPKE because it needed hybrid composites, and the other one went directly straight to post-quantum with this track. It is, for Jose specifically, it is two ways of doing the same thing, and we should try to avoid.
It's funny that you say that, because you just gave an algorithm presentation yesterday, Philip, in OAuth. So yeah, that's fits quite nicely then.
I don't see how that's relevant at all.
Yaroslav?
Yaroslav, yeah, from my perspective as implementer, having two ways to do the same thing when you need to interoperate with other providers is not great. Meaning that I would need to implement both, because I don't know upfront, will everybody who I speak to will be speaking HPKey flavor or will be speaking PQ flavor. I would need to maintain both. I would need to figure out vulnerabilities and bugs in both. Yeah, my strong preference would be to go with that one approach at this stage.
I'm sorry, I'm just catching up on chat real quickly. The unresolved question seems to be, what's the positive use case for Jose versus Cozy? So did we have anybody who had an answer to that?
I can at least talk about the use case that interests us for our networks, mobile networks. So there are two paths of migration that we see, either moving to hybrid schemes or moving to pure PQ, right? For hybrid schemes, unfortunately, we don't have any other mechanism other than using HPKE, because that's the only one which gives you a native support for hybrid GEMS HPKE model with both PQ and traditional. But if someone straight away wants to jump from, let's say, traditional to, let's say, just using pure PQ, that this provides the most simplest and easy path for migration without having to do new modes like in integrated encryption. Just leverage the existing modes, and it's a very easy transition path, right? And several deployments would require migrating straight away from traditional to pure PQ, and this meets that without having to first migrate to HPKey, then eventually migrating to the eventual work happening in the HPKey working group.
Go ahead, John.
Hi, John Bradley, individual. I kind of have a question for Deb, just to put her on the spot. Some groups of people have skepticism about hybrid definitely signing, likely encryption. Are those groups of people likely to just use HPKE in a pure post-quantum mode, or are they going to, have you detected any desire to not do HPKE so that you can do pure post-quantum?
So I have not looked at this closely at all. The original HPKE was not a post-quantum
Right.
construction, right? It was just the traditional. The new version of HPKE that they're putting out is a hybrid post-quantum traditional construction. If you wanted pure post-quantum without the traditional algorithm, what are your options in Jose? This?
Well, I'm assuming that that HPKE can still be used in a purely post-quantum way without requiring hybrid. So I'm just trying to figure out whether or not that is I mean, if it can't, which would be news to me, then yeah, perhaps there's a stronger argument for doing a closer to a bare metal implementation of post-quantum encryption without post-quantum key agreement without HPKE. But in general, people have moved to HPKE because it improves the security model in various dimensions, and there has been a desire in various working groups to standardize on HPKE. So we seem to be going somewhat against that trend if we're encouraging a different or having two different models, one with HPKE and one without. I also am sensitive to, as somebody who works with constrained environments, more code is more money, because we need, storage is expensive on TPMs and secure elements. But I all that is a given, but is there something that can't be done with HPKE? I want to understand, I guess, like Mike, is there something that can't be done with HPKE that we really do need the lower level pure post-quantum primitives for?
So I don't know the answer to that.
HPKE does support the earlier HPKE where it was initially started, right? The XWIG draft, which is popularly deployed today, was only for hybrid schemes. But later, I think the latest version in the HPKE working group now also includes the PUPQ.
So if that's the case, the argument that we need these more low-level constructions that might not be entirely true.
All right. Mike? John, were you in the queue for something else? You've already...
Nope.
You done? Okay.
I'm
Mike?
good.
Hi, Michael speaking as an individual. Yeah, just to John's point, kind of agreeing with Thierry there, you can do pure PQ in HPKE. I think there's a couple of links to the draft in the chat. I think it's just the nature of the terminology where the H in HPKE is hybrid, but that's a different hybrid from hybrid PQC. So yes, you can do both with HPKE.
John?
Okay. Hi. Yeah. So my comment is, because the hybrid came up, so like, wouldn't this fit with the composite chem, right? Because if you wanted a hybrid, that would be a way to fit this in, like, because the way composite chem, which is in the LAMPS group, about to be standardized, it's basically a chem API wrapper, right? It looks exactly like a chem. It acts like a chem. You could use that. It would plug into this nicely. You don't have the HPK complexity. So, I mean, you can do the pure mode. You can do anything that's basically a chem with this thing. So, yeah, I'm just bringing that up because someone I think mentioned that there wasn't another way to do hybrid, but you could do something like a composite chem to do a hybrid, and I think it would fit right into this too if that was something that people wanted. That's my comment.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, John. I'm aware of the draft. This draft is just specific for using pure PQs. So it's just using the very same KDF APIs that is used by LAMP working group. So you can see many similarities between this draft and the LAMP draft.
All right. I see two ways forward. I mean, we need to discuss this on the list. One is to go to working group last call, or the second one is to have the discussion prior to the working group last call. And the chairs and the authors will sync afterwards and figure out which is which way we're going to go, if that's all right. I see raised eyebrows.
Holder of raised eyebrows. I don't quite know what it would mean to go to working group last call after that discussion.
Okay.
Maybe I don't. Am I missing the bigger picture here? But it seems like there's a lot of concerns with the work proceeding, and so working group last call doesn't seem quite like the right step at this stage.
Let me see what. Okay. Checking in with folks.
So one of the options is to split the draft, right? And sorry, I've got a visitor. To split the draft and just do a Jose version of it, in which case you could take this back to Jose. You don't have to do it in Jose, really. Sorry. He likes video calls. And the question is whether you need two ways to do it. Do you need an HPKE way and a just straight up generic pure chem way? And I can see from an interoperability point of view, from an implementation point of view, you don't want to have two ways to do the same thing. So there has to be a compelling reason for why you want to do it, why you need two ways to do it. Be that HPKE or be that just straight up regular chem. That's what you need to have the conversation on the list about, is what are you going to do about the Jose piece of it? And if you decide not to do the generic version that you have here, then you just split it out and take it back to Jose for the Jose piece.
Okay. All right, we will take it to the list. So it looks like I jumped over. I made the presentations out of order, so my apologies. Good help's hard to get sometimes. Do you want a clicker? So this is the previous item on the agenda that I accidentally skipped over. And let me give you the control. There.
Okay, so hi everyone. So this talk is about the hybrid composite signatures working group document for Jose and Jose. So it was presented during multiple IETF meetings. It got adopted in January this year, and it was updated last month following this adoption. So first, just a quick reminder of what this draft is about. So the goal is to define different hybrid composite signature schemes for Jose and Cose. In particular, a combination of MLDSA for the post-quantum component and either ECDSA or ETDSA for the traditional component. So you have the list of registered algorithms given in this slide. The draft also describes how to handle the key generation, signing, and verification for these composite algorithms in alignment with the construction described in the LEMS composite draft. We also use the algorithm key pair key type, and we only support the seed representation for MLDSA private keys to stay consistent with the COSI pure MLDSA draft. We also discuss multiple security properties in the security consideration section, like separability, key reuse, key integrity, or the lack of strong unforgettability security. And we include multiple test vectors. So what happened since the last IETF meeting? So the draft got adopted as a Jose working group document in January. Following this adoption, we had an update. So in this update, we included new test vectors for all combinations for Jose and Cose. We also rewrote the security consideration section with more details, better explaining the security objectives, how the lack of SUF CMA security. So this construction should only be used when existential unforgettability is acceptable. But we also explain how to handle how to deal with replay protection, for example, and we have some discussions regarding key integrity and key reuse. And finally, some editorial modifications. And so looking further ahead, we plan to, in the next update, to include a few modifications to address a comment which was received after this update. So regarding point compression, and the presence of SAN1 computing, so that we don't want. So for the next steps, we have a few questions for the working group. So is the list of registered algorithms satisfactory? Is it not too long, not too short? Is the security considerations section satisfactory? And if you have any issues to be solved, to allow the progress of the draft, and what kind of improvements you are looking for before considering a working group last call. So I would be happy to receive your comments and suggestions. Thank you.
Any questions? Who's reviewed the document? Okay. Request to the working group to please review the document and put some comments in. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I don't claim sufficient expertise to answer is whether this is the right list of algorithms. This is where it would be great if we had, a John Mattson or somebody who is closer to the cryptography vet the list. I think the draft itself is solid.
All right. So with that, thank you, Lucas.
Okay, thank you. So maybe if some people would like to review and send their comments to
yes,
the draft,
please
it would be
review,
great.
comment on the list, review on the draft.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Next is Brian and Philip. Slides. Share the slides. Wait, sorry, I just
Sorry.
pushed the wrong button. Hold on.
Oh, I can barely read that.
All right, you should have control.
Okay, thank you. Topical, I guess. I'm here to talk about a document largely that Philip worked on and I've attached myself to, thanks to his generosity, about Jose, HPKE, PQ, and PQT algorithm registrations. So what is in this draft? I know a lot of people don't have a chance to read things beforehand. I certainly appreciate that, so I'll try to give a little summary. This is a focused algorithm registration document. It doesn't do anything else. That's it. Just registers algorithm code points. It registers both pure PQ and PQT hybrid or composite. I'm still struggling with the name there because hybrid confuses me, but we seem to have settled on hybrid, so probably call it that going forward. Both of those algorithm identifiers for Jose. It includes test vectors for all registered algorithms, and it builds entirely on established mechanisms developed in this working group and elsewhere in the IETF, specifically the Jose HPKE draft that we just learned we're sending along to the ISG for publication, where this working group spent a lot of time trying to build a coherent and meaningful model to represent HPKE messages in the context of JWE. And I think we settled on a pretty good place for what that message representation looks like. And this working group is producing that document and getting it published. This builds on and registers algorithms in the context of that Jose HPKE framework, period. And the algorithms that it registers are from the newish, soon to be probably closed HPKE working group, where they have a distinct draft. I don't know if folks haven't followed it. The HPKE working group has basically done a BIS on the original HPKE document, which is largely just a rewrite clarification of the existing work, moving it from informational to standards track and fixing a few nits and things here and there, but it's basically the same thing. And then they have an additional document, which is the definition of PQ and PQT hybrid chems for the HPKE framework. And that's all defined in this IETF HPKE PQ document that is progressing either alongside or shortly after the BIS-ish HPKE document. And the document that we're presenting here relies entirely on those two constructs to register the PQ and PQT algorithms defined in the HPK document for use in the context of Jose HPKE. No new cryptographic, you have to be able to say it first, but no new crypto methods or mechanisms are introduced. Nothing is rehashed. It's a very baseline, basic document that seeks to accomplish making these algorithm suites available in the context of Jose HPKE. So why does this draft exist? We got to some of that in the contentious discussion a few minutes ago, but effectively, as the HPKE work progressed through this working group, Philip raised the question about, as well as a fairly in-depth pull request on the HPKE document itself, asking why we don't use this new framework that we've developed as the vehicle for representation of PQ and PQT algorithms going forward for all of Jose. There's a lot of words there, and he basically recommended doing it in the context of that very document. There was some pushback, and I think it was rightly so, that we didn't want to hold up the HPKE framework itself for delivering the PQT content there. But conceptually, the idea, I think, is very valued. So the HPKE stuff proceeded, and Philip took that pull request and basically transferred it into a very concise, nicely done document that frames it as just registrations for the underlying HPKE framework in Jose. There's some choices that were made because they have to be made about the algorithm suite approach. Right now, in the context of the document, there's 5 chems across the 2 different categories of PQ and PQT. You see here, I decided to scratch out hybrid and call it composite just to confuse myself or you. I don't know if it helps. Maybe it makes it worse. But we've got that's an angry looking glare. You list them out there. There's MLChem, and my eyes aren't even good enough. 768 with P256 and with X52219, as well as MLChem 1024 and P384. And then we've got the pure PQs. I don't know why it's so hard to say. PQs with 768 and 1024. There's one KDF across all of them, just Shake 256. It's used inside of some of the MLChem things. It's nice to have one common KDF hash algorithm, one thing to use throughout this context of this. Helpful. There's two AEADs, GCM 256 and Cha-Cha Poly, and each suite has two modes building on top of what we established in the HPKE document itself. One for so-called integrated encryption, where the HPKE stuff happens sort of internally to the JWE HPKE framework and is directly encrypted. I won't use the word encapsulated, even though I just did, encoded in that message format. And then there's the key encryption mode, where the HPKE stuff is used to encrypt the symmetric content encryption key, and then sort of standard vanilla JWE is used after that. We did omit MLChem 512. I'm not an expert in this area, but it seems like there's growing concerns, growing consensus about the security level of this and potentially cryptanalysis, sort of reducing what security level it actually provides. It seemed optimal to just drop it and not try to push it forward in the sake of like avoiding potential security questions, as well as reducing the overall number of algorithm suites implemented. I saw a hand pop up, but I don't know if that was...
That was me. I decided to not include MLChem 512 for one reason, maybe two. One, the HPKE PQ document itself didn't start with MLChem 512. It was added just for completeness with the exact same concern. So I'm repeating it here on why it wasn't included. The other, which is, let's say, exhibiting those concerns in practice, is that libraries, not all, of course, because some libraries just want to implement everything. Some libraries choose not to include MLChem 512, and that includes boring SSL, which directly transfers to Chromium and therefore the Chrome browser and Edge, where MLChem 512 will not be available.
John?
Yeah, I was just going to say in the composite chem as well, we didn't have MLChem 768 either, so we left out the MLChem 512. So it's in alignment with that as well.
If you could cut something, do you need 3 hybrid chems? If I would, I don't know, it's fine. If I would cut something, I would cut the P curves. The only reason they are like included in the hybrid in TLS is that people have certified implementation of the P curve and they want to add MLChem and claim that then they have a NIST FIPS certified hybrid also. So
we do have a slide on trimming down the algorithms coming up.
I'm fine with the current. If I cut it down, I would keep X25519.
Yeah, the X25519 isn't, I don't think on anybody's list for cutting, but some of the other ones we're discussing. Turns out that choosing an algorithm suite is harder than you might think, but these are the ones that initially were selected in the document. And the next slide talks about some feedback we've received on lists, some discussions we've had about, nope, it's not the next slide. It's the next slide after this. This is just the sort of the menu of currently offered algorithm suites. I don't think this is anything different than what's shown on the left side. It's just laid out in a nice table form. So and it's not even this slide, it's the slide after this, but this leads into it. Some of the mailing list discussions, Cha-Cha Poly variants. So it's potentially possible that AES 256 covers all the practical needs in the context of this work. Notably, Jose itself doesn't currently have Cha-Cha Poly AEAD algorithms registered. So at the very least, it's a bit strange to have the HPKE key encryption variants using Cha-Cha Poly and then mixing that with AES, because there's no Cha-Cha Poly equivalent registered in the current suite of Jose algorithms. So removing those at least would make sense for some, not algorithm parity, but matching of similar algorithms in a single message, and that's not even available in the current suite. It might make sense to drop them all, but we're kind of trending towards at least dropping that said the key encryption and maybe all of them. Ori, who is a very busy AD, is not here, but he suggested that due to low P384 adoption, maybe just leave out MLChem 1024, P384 hybrid composite. And he mentions that the 768, P256, as well as MLChem just 1024 already cover all the security levels. I think Philip summed it up here nicely with like, I don't really know. It is the same security level there, but it's not a hybrid composite. I don't know how important that is. I guess it's a point of consideration. I don't have a strong opinion on it. The general idea of security level matching, whether using AES 256 or 128, where it might be more similar to the other algorithms, was mentioned by our new chair, Michael. I think there was a pretty long discussion on list here where both the authors believe that basically the current proposal is good enough. Using the higher key length AEAD seems sufficient and reasonable in most cases, and trying to introduce the possibility of a shorter keyed AEAD just wasn't worth the overhead and mix and matching and having multiple algorithm supports. And I believe that is Deb Cooley is on the chair. I think that he came around to this position, but maybe Deb will tell me I'm wrong.
Deb?
I was going to ask you to go back to the previous slide.
Ooh, even worse.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sure.
So this is an AES question. So do you not already implement AES 128?
There is an AES 128 and 192 algorithm for in Jose for content encryption, or the regular AEAD there. So it is likely available. But this was just more about like trimming the cardinality and number of possibilities just in this set of new registrations.
And so are you using this AES for content encryption or for key encryption?
Both, depending on the JWE HPKE mode. So you can do either depending on the algorithm chosen. That's kind of what's represented by the parenthetical -KE. For the HPKE Jose framework underneath, key encryption is possible where the HPK algorithm itself, including this AEAD, is used for key encryption, which is then used, that encrypted key is used for encrypting the rest of the message per normal JWE framework. And then the integrated encryption is where it's used directly to encrypt the message itself, and then that's encoded inside the JWE. So I think I just talked a lot, didn't answer the question, but both. Part of the reason we're thinking of dropping the Cha-Cha Poly, especially for key encryption, is Cha-Cha Poly is not currently supported as a registered regular JWE content encryption algorithm. So it's kind of weird to use it as a key encryption piece to then use AES as a regular AEAD.
Right. So why would you add it as a key encryption? I agree with that. Like if you're not using it for content encryption, I don't know why you would add it for key encryption.
Yeah.
I don't know how often Cha-Cha Poly is used for key encryption. AES 256 GCM is not also classically for key encryption, but is there something? So I don't know. Anyway, my question, the reason I got in the mic line was just because to ask why you were picking AES 256 when normally for something, and I like things to be matchy. It's just a bit, yeah, it's bad. It's just an old habit. And so for the smaller versions of MLChem, AES 128 is more matchy in terms of security strength. I just didn't know why you were picking AES 256. If you were just doing it to have a minimum number of algorithms, that's fine. If you were picking it because you thought it was going to be post-quantum secure better than 128, I think that philosophy on that has changed.
Yeah, no, it was much more.
It was entirely to keep the set of algorithms down.
That's fine. That's
Yep.
fine. And then I think if you really want to go farther, you ditch the cha-cha.
Yep.
All right, Michael.
Hey, Deb's point that she just made, speaking as an individual, sorry, Deb's point that she just made was exactly what I was trying to get at on list. I guess I'm happy with what's in there at the moment. I guess the approach is slightly different to the HPK working group draft and the non-PQ Jose working group draft. So just kind of acknowledging that, the slide, the one you had on slide 2. But if the reason is keep it simple, then that's fine.
Yeah, thank you. I tried not to misrepresent you here, but I wanted to say something anyway. But
Yaroslav, this would be the.
Real quickly on that, one difference with HPK itself is it's a bit more of like a la carte algorithm selection, where we have a little bit more of a suite format here. So it made sense to reduce, in that context, the algorithm choices as opposed to the way that basic HPK will offer just the AD independently.
Thanks.
On the topic of IS 256 versus 128, one other point I'd like to make is, at least in modern hardware, the performance difference is really small.
Negligible.
So it's okay to go with IS 256, I think, from that perspective at least. And when it comes to MLChem 1024P384 hybrid, my slight preference would be to keep it simply to match TLS. So when you define a policy of what does good look like in certain environments, you have this hybrid available in TLS along 2 others. So it would be great to have this as an option in Jose as well.
Thank you.
All right. John?
Yeah, hi, John. Yeah, John Gray from Entrust. Yeah, I noticed, I think you said the KDF is shake. And my only thought there, and I'll have to look at your draft in more detail, but I just thought I'd mention is, like, for instance, in the composite chem, we use SHA-3. So is this KDF, it's used to combine the shared secrets together, or is this something different the way it's used here?
This is the HPKE KDF, so it is part of the HPKE construct.
Okay, so it's different. I just wanted to make sure that at the crypto layer that we're compatible, because we spent a fair bit of time with the HPKI and the different domains and all that, making sure things are compatible between the 2 things. So I just want to make sure there's no compatibility here. Okay, so that's good. I'll look at your draft and just make sure things look right.
I don't think it's a compatibility issue. I may have misspoken when I said it's used throughout all the algorithms. It's used inside of the MLChem stuff, but I wasn't aware. Maybe it sounds like SHA-3 itself is used as part of combiners and the composites. Regardless, it shouldn't be a compatibility thing. It's still intentionally trying to just limit the number of options and pieces. But do please take a look and let us know if we're wrong there.
I'll take a look and just see if I notice anything. Okay, thanks. Good work.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Mike, can you hold to the end, or do you have?
The same thing John said. Like the X-Wing stuff, it really is SHA-3, not Shake. So if you want to avoid introducing a new primitive in the world, I'll take a look too.
Okay.
We do want to trim some of the algorithms. The exact set is a little unclear. I wanted to get the temperature of the room, but I'd rather get the temperature of that on the list later. But here's kind of some of the options and how it might trim down the numbers. Particularly getting rid of some or all of the cha-cha polyvariants would be great, I think, in most people's opinion, or at least most of the author's opinion. Just noting, a lot of work went into this. Where a lot of content automation around generation of stuff in the document, including algorithm tables, DIN entries, all the test vectors, the JWK examples are all code generated, and everything changes upon changing the algorithm set, which means we could regenerate all this stuff very easily and consistently if we chose to pare down some of those algorithms or add some new ones. Adapting this to whatever we decide, whatever the consensus of the working group might be around the algorithm sets would be very trivial and also likely not to be broken. And Philip did also put some work into a COSE variant of this work, this automation work. And if anyone's interested in that, he has offered himself up to be contacted if they want to take a look at that. Hopefully you know where to find him. Little bit of lag there. So I know this is being discussed right after this, but there's also the COSE-HOSE PQC hybrid HPKE draft. This draft, I believe with Tiru and Hannes, have done a lot of work on this, but it has some differences from the work that we're proposing here. Largely, it reintroduces and rediscusses a lot of mechanisms that are already established in its normative references, specifically some of the HPKE and HPKE PQ work. There's a lot of repeated or duplicate content there. This sort of thing can be a source of like a lot of bike shedding, drift between the content of those documents and delays in the work. It does have MLChem 512. It doesn't have examples or test vectors, as we have discussed for better or worse. In the context of this meeting and others, that document spans both HOSE and COSE and unnecessarily couples them together. Document 2 will be presented to the COSE working group a little bit later this week. In draft 9 of this work, back in December, it didn't include any pure PQ work. And then shortly after that, draft 10 in February added the pure PQ stuff shortly after Philip and I introduced our draft to the list. In contrast, the draft that we're looking at here is HOSE only, very much intentionally. It's a straightforward algorithm registration. It introduces a bunch of very nice test vectors and delegates as much normative stuff as possible to the normative references that it makes. It tries to be very straightforward and concise in what it accomplishes. We have talked at almost no length, but Karen sent an email requesting on behalf of the WG chairs that noting that there's a fair amount of overlap between these two drafts and made a request to consider how and if they might be combined. Also mentioned, and sorry to quote you here, Karen, but that we would like to continue to keep COSE and HOSE HPK aligned. I think I've already said it a few times in this meeting, but I'll say it again. I think this should be a secondary goal at most. There are times when there's a good reason to have alignment between the two, but COSE and HOSE are in fact different working groups. And for better and worse, HOSE and COSE have already drifted apart. They are in fact different, both in the way that some of the messages are structured, some of the algorithms that are even possible, as well as what algorithms have even been registered. For example, COSE has bare AES CBC algorithms registered. It has cha-cha poly AEADs registered. So some of the questions and arguments around what algorithm suites should be supported at the HPKE layer don't even translate naturally to what they would mean at HOSE, because the underlying or side pieces of those specifications don't align already. I think appropriate alignment, appropriate levels of alignment are still possible across multiple documents, and multiple documents in the working group where the expertise around that work is already existing. And I think we've seen this happen with some bumps and bruises, but relatively well already with the Jose and Cose HPKA work, which are separate documents, came up together in their respective working groups and maintain some measure of alignment between the two, but are distinct different documents that aren't tightly bound to one another. So with that, my proposal on a way forward here is to adopt the draft that I presented here, keep it in Jose, this working group where we're at right now, and keep the scope to Jose alone. Add Tiru and Hannes as authors on this document as acknowledged to their prior work in this area and efforts in this area. And take ready Cose Jose to Cose, consider its adoption in Cose. Obviously that's a decision for the Cose working group, but I would suggest it be taken there and narrow the scope of that document to Cose only. And if desired, utilize some of Philip's recent efforts in this area to automate and help build the content in there. But that's obviously decisions for that document and those authors if they would want to pursue that.
All right, is that the...
Of course, there's one more slide. That's what I got. Thank you all.
Okay, I'd like to discuss the way forward after the next presentation, so.
I had that slide after I saw you added that agenda item, but I wanted to speak to it.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. We did add that agenda item at the last minute. Mike, is this a question for clarification or a question about way forward? I'd like to.
Neither.
Okay.
I agree that we shouldn't blindly think that we keep Cose and Jose synchronized.
That this is this is a way forward topic. I'd really like to discuss it after the next presentation.
Okay.
All right, Tiru and Hannes.
Yeah, I'll present the slides.
Yeah, let me get to that point. Let's see, make sure I have the right set. Oh, no, that's the wrong set. Oh, no, that's, sorry. There's just enough delay that I don't think I've pushed the right button and I pushed something else. All right. Why aren't you? Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I'll talk about the post-quantum and hybrid chems for HPKE with Jose and Cose. This draft has been around for almost, I believe, more than 2 years. We've been pushing for this document to get adapted by the working group, but I think the decision was not to adapt this till we progress the Jose Cose HPKA drafts. So this draft basically gives two transition paths. One is, I think, figure got misaligned, but basically it gives two paths. One is to either move from traditional to hybrid or move directly from traditional to pure PQ. This draft discusses why it supports two modes, especially because there's at least quite a bit of confusion around the industry, why someone wants to pick pure hybrid when pure PQ is available. So this draft goes into details to clarify that hybrid gives defense in depth security, and that's what is currently being popularly deployed by the industry. And pure PQ is also being pushed by for various regulatory and policy requirements that may prohibit use of traditional algorithms. So that's the reason we want this document to be clear for people who want to migrate to weigh the pros and cons of deciding whether they have to support both or just one of them, and figure out what's the right transition path for the migration. This draft has been updated in the last few revisions to align with the Cose Jose HPKE drafts. It's also aligned with the recent work of the HPKE PQ. We don't have any comments with regard to any pending issues in this document so far. Even the issue of AKP was discussed for this draft, and we are using AKP for representing both PQC and PQT hybrid public keys. I think we have discussed in the previous deck on various algorithm options. I'm not going to go into details, but what we did in this document is to add a table to list the various options of algorithms that are available, the modes that are available, and the combination of traditional and the KDF functions that are available and the A8 options that are there, along with the levels of security that would provide with regard to NIST, as well as comparison with classic security strengths, to realize for someone who wants to migrate to see what is the right level of security they would get, especially with hybrid schemes. Uh, this draft talks about MLChem 512 purely for as NIST has already standardized security category 1. It's MLChem 512 is already supported by TLS and IPsec. I know it's supported by OpenSSL and StrongSwan as well. I think MLChem 512 is pretty much intended for constrained devices and bandwidth sensitive environments because of its much smaller public key and ciphertext sizes. The question back to the working group is whether we want to add MLChem or exclude it, but I think it makes quite a bit of useful to be used for COSE at least. I think we discussed Shake 256 already, so I'm not going to go into that detail, but Shake 256 already used by MLChem, so we just leverage that. We also have AES 256 for all the levels except we are using AES 128 for MLChem 512, and Chacha Poly 1305 is added as an alternative, but we understand that Jose is not using it and we are open to not add it. These are the current hybrid combinations. We did not pair MLChem 1024 with the 521, which is of matching security levels, because P384 all offers a strong classical fallback. It's already widely deployed and implemented, at least for TLS. So even here, I think X259 seems to be like the one with MLChem 768, the most prominent one that would see deployability in the near future compared to the other curves. This draft is not just about adding new code points, which is quite easy, right? This draft also goes into several discussions that we had in the working group on the post-quantum security, especially for multiple recipients. For instance, if you look into this diagram, it talks about if you use different combinations of algorithms with varying security levels. For instance, recipient uses MLChem, whereas recipient C uses ECDH, then the message that is encrypted would be subjected to harvest node decrypt letter attack. So it has some normative text on if you have messaging multiple recipients, then what is the right combination of algorithms you want to use to avoid this kind of attacks. This draft has been around from 2024, even before the HPKE working group was formed. So we were leveraging the Xwing work as a reference, since that was already deployed, because we are quite interested in the hybrid schemes as a potential transition from asymmetric cryptography to traditional asymmetric cryptography to using PQT schemes. This draft has been presented multiple times at various meetings, both in COSE and JOSE working groups. But at the time, the decision was deferred that the working group will not have any cycles to look into this document till the COSE and HPK drafts were complete. But in the meanwhile, there were so many comments that we received, and I think we've published around close to 11 versions to address the working group feedback so far. Yeah, the other draft that was just submitted was submitted in Feb 2026. We have not received any comments from the authors of the other draft to enhance this one, so they decided to go and publish an independent document. That draft only registers COSE. This draft registers both COSE and JOSE. Our proposal is a single document to review, adapt, and maintain. I mean, just to make progress and without having to figure out which draft to pick, we can add Philip and Brian as co-authors and make progress on this document, as hybrid is something that I see at least has made tremendous progress within TLS and IPsec, and has already been integrated in various open source libraries. But the hybrid schemes are not at in a stage where even it's adapted, and it is impacting us to take this work back to 3GPP, which is looking for a stable reference to discuss in the 3GPP specifications. That's it from me.
Are you still talking, Tiro, or did?
Yeah, I'm done.
Oh, you're done. Okay. That would explain the silence. I wasn't sure if we had an audio problem. All right. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, Mike Jones. So one of the things, I'm looking at the current draft of the document. One of the things that surprises me is it still is attempting to register polymorphic algorithms. It doesn't include separate algorithms for use with integrated encryption versus the use of key encryption, which both the COSE and the HOSE HPKE drafts do. So at a minimum, that would have to happen to this draft if it's going to go forward.
I don't know, Mike, you may be looking at the wrong version probably, but if you look at the latest version, if you look at the INR registry, we have added two different variants, which is HP key and HP key key wrap, basically, just like to align with the
I'm looking at 04 as in the data tracker.
we are at 11 basically, so I think you're looking at a very old version.
Oh, okay. Search failed me. Thank you. And then I'll make the comment I was going to make after Brian's presentation. On one hand, I don't think we should be blindly or sort of just mechanically keeping HOSE and COSE aligned just for the sake of doing it, because the use cases are different. That said, to the extent that the same functionality is needed in both worlds, and there will be a core overlap where it is needed, I would sure hope that it's done exactly the same way, using the same algorithm names, et cetera. Now, how we do that in terms of the process of documents and authors, I'm not taking a position, but I do want both working groups to thoughtfully consider what algorithms should be registered in both and do it exactly the same.
Yeah, I thought when we rechartered this working group that the objective was to keep them aligned as much as possible. I think the objective is still the same. The question is whether we do it by single documents that span the working groups or whether we do that as different documents in different working groups. I was following along what I thought we had pretty much agreed to. I think we'll start one thread of conversation about that. I think the second conversation is what do we think is the best way forward for this two particular set of pairs of documents? I think we had originally proposed a combined document with all 4 editors that would cover both. And I think Brian has proposed a separate document in each working group. I think Tiru and Hannes have basically proposed what we had originally suggested. So I'm not sure. Let me get back to a window where I can make sure I can see the queue. Ah, yes, look at that. Mike, are you in or out? Is that a new queue entry? Okay. So with that, I'd like to open the floor for discussions on way forward, and Brent is next.
Brent Zundell, first channeling comments from Real World Crypto, which happened in Taipei earlier. Please, for the love of God, stop giving so many options. This is to both drafts. Like, as far as possible, please eliminate the optionality. Please, 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 please. I think that was a direct quote. Secondly, between these 2 drafts, my inclination is to bring all authors into the first one that was presented. It seems to be more naturally in line with the HPK work that's happened, a little less shoehorning. And I agree with the concerns about divergence between Jose and Koze, but in this, it feels like, with the Koze use cases specifically, maybe requiring ML-Chem 512, and the Jose use case is really not. That's one example of where, this divergence probably should be happening in 2 specs anyway. And it would make sense to me to split the Koze part out and invite the Koze working group to proceed with it. Just my 2 cents.
Nick?
Hi, so this is a general problem that we're seeing across the entire IETF whenever a new crypto primitive is introduced. So I'd like to point folks to the CFRG meeting, which is next. I'll be doing a presentation about a draft, a personal draft I put together called Draft Sullivan Crypto Publication, which outlines a number of useful pathways, a framework for thinking about coordinating cross groups regarding standardizing the use of new crypto primitives. So this seems very salient to what's being discussed right now. So if folks want to attend that, ask questions, take a read, let me know if that document is helpful for putting path forward. Please do so.
Okay, thank you. Hannes? Hannes, are you speaking or?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. I think there are several things that come together here. One is the algorithms and the number that we need to register. I think that has always been a challenge in any effort, as far as I remember. So I think there's nothing unique there. I'm looking forward to see the document from Nick that he just mentioned on how that could be solved. The other aspect is one, which is the working group sort of coordination. And in the past, I was under the impression that there was a desire to keep the 2 groups synchronized, which is why we have in a couple of different places documents which either sit in Koze or Jose to define something that is applicable to both. In this specific case, as I posted on the chat, for example, the PQC signature work is one such an example. It's specified for both groups in one document. but of course, if the group wants to do it differently, that's fine as well. But it would just be nice to tell the authors what the strategy is, because it can't just change like in a beat like this and that. So we do nothing else than switching documents, or not even knowing what the right current approach is to deal with the other thing. And the last item is a question of work style and ethics, which I think is a little bit annoying. And I think something has changed in the way we work. I would almost say past COVID. It would be nice to just, specifically when people know each other quite well, who have worked together for many years, that if they are unhappy with something, that they would talk to each other, just pick up the phones in quotes and reach out. And instead of causing some unnecessary disputes, essentially. Because imagine, just think yourself in the following position. You work on a document for a couple of years. You're told, oh, you need to wait a little bit. And then someone else comes along and just republishes a version that is essentially covers the content, and then says, oh, just leave something out. You can make any change you want and argue this is different. And I think this is just bad behavior. And that's what I'm mostly unhappy about. I'm not unhappy about the discussions about which algorithm should go in, and we always had those, but it's the way of working that it makes me a little bit sad, to be honest.
Tiro?
Yeah, thanks. I have a few comments to add to what Hannes just said. Right, I don't want to repeat myself, but I see we have several documents for PQ like MLDSA and SLHDSA using both Jose and Jose. So what makes it quite different that we want to do differently for certain set of PQ algorithms versus doing it for a different set of PQ algorithms, right? That's the first question. The second question is, it's not just about the code points, right? It's about the transition path, right? I mean, if the whole discussion that we were having this week in TLS working group was, why do you need to pick PQM, right? Why do you want to deploy it when we have hybrids, right? And there was a lot of ask to add recommendations, basically, right? Where it suits, where it does not suit, what is the de facto recommended one that that I think TLS wants to recommend, that implementations wants to do, because without that guidance, people are lost, basically, right? And they're looking for outside material to decide on, hey, IETF has standardized both PQ and hybrid. I don't know which one to pick, right? And then the security aspects of it, right? What combinations are used? What is the eventual hybrid securities outcome of classic strength or NIST security levels that are being offered? And then the whole aspect of using and mixing algorithms with different multiple recipients, which requires a whole lot of discussion around the security sections, right? So if it's just registering code points, right? I mean, we could just easily add that, right? I mean, any one of us could do that, but the document has been discussed quite a while in the working group, especially on the security aspect and the downgrade attacks and the harvest not related attack, which triggered this entire draft to be published in the first place. And then the whole question, right? I mean, when someone publishes an individual document, right? I mean, if there are comments on the draft and we don't address that, right? I mean, you're free to open and write a new draft, but you haven't raised any comments in the mailing list, and suddenly you come up with a draft when you know the drafts can't make progress. So if we are deciding on a policy like this, does it mean like somebody writes a draft tomorrow and I don't like it and I want to add few more paragraphs to it and just publish another variant with few more additions because I know working group is not going to pick it? So are we going to set a precedence if we follow this race, right, where someone takes it without even coming and raising these objections in any of the working group meetings where people were there, they have given comments, and none of these comments were raised previously, and they just published a document? So does that mean that it gives a freedom for anyone to do this kind of work in the future, right? Thank you.
All right, Philip.
I would like to keep it short and factual. We did bring up some of those concerns in December on the list. Brian has showed the email to the group. At the time of that email to the group, there was no HPKE document in Jose or Cose that would do pure post-quantum. The repeated narrative for the two drafts that you have presented today, Tiru, has been that pure post-quantum goes through the CAM draft and hybrids go through HPKE. What we did was not simply republish somebody else's document. That is not true. I think that's enough. Like when it comes to ethics, this is not what happened. We did bring that concern to the mailing list, and there were discussions specifically asking for that separate draft.
Okay. Deb?
Okay, with my AD hat on. So there are 4 of you. You need to get together. You need to talk about what you're going to do, and we need to combine the drafts into 1 or 2 drafts. One draft, if it's possible to do Jose and Cose together in some reasonable manner that's clear, concise, and well constructed, because Cose obviously has different requirements than Jose does, right? You want ML Chem 512 for Cose, you don't want it for Jose, for example. You may want AES 128 for Cose. You already have Cha-Cha Poly registered for Cose. You don't have those, or you don't want those things for Jose. So if it makes sense to make one draft, that's fine. If it's complicated, too complicated to put them together, then separate them, because the requirements are different. I do want to see test vectors in both drafts. I do want to see a small number of options in the hybrid cases. I do think there's a way even for Brian and Philip's draft to cut down the number of options, because I agree with Brent. The more options you give them, the more ways you can mess it up. So let's just give them a couple of options. If you can give them 2 hybrids and 2 pure, then we're good. But I think you need to get together and you need to sort it out. But you need to talk to each other. It sounds to me like you're talking past each other, and you need to get it in gear. If I was there in person and you were all there in person, we'd meet in the damn ping pong room and we'd have a cage match again. But we're not doing that because I'm not here and neither are some of you. So that's my AD hat version and my mom version. So
Thanks, Deb.
Oh, sorry.
You wanted to.
So am I head of the queue?
You are head of the queue.
Okay, Mike Jones. I mean, Karen, your recollection, I believe, is right, that when we rechartered Jose, we explicitly put in scope doing stuff that coordinates between Jose and Cose, and we've used that ability numerous times. I've been the author of several drafts that have done things in both places. Most recently, the fully specified algorithms draft, which is sort of meta, but I've certainly also done algorithms drafts that cover both. Given these are algorithms drafts, I think it's going to be easier for reviewers and for implementers to have it in one draft. And I'm not saying, again, per my earlier comments, that every choice for Cose must appear in Jose and vice versa, but I do expect there to be a core set that's in common.
Okay. Tiru?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Deb, right? I think that's giving direction for us to make progress. So we'll have meetings scheduled after IETF and then figure a way forward.
Okay, thank you, Tiru. So to summarize, we will continue to keep Jose and Jose aligned where possible, but we won't be shackled together unnecessarily if it doesn't make sense. And the 4 authors of these 2 drafts will get together and figure out the way forward for these 2 drafts, either 2 documents, one in Jose, one in Jose, or 1 document. And you will follow Deb's guidance on test vectors and limiting options. Anything else? Okay. With that, I think we are. Oh, wait, let me take the slides back from Tiru. And pretty sure we're at the end. If anybody has any last minute questions or comments, feel free to get in the queue while I double check that I haven't missed anything else on the agenda. Guess that's it. So if there's no other business, thank you to all for coming. Thank you for all of the authors. Please, people, review and comment on the documents, and we will move on to Vienna. And you have an extra 9 minutes in your day.
I'd also like to say thank you to Brent for the notes. They're really thorough, so thank you.
Yes, thank you for the minutes. And thank you for the feedback from Crypto World.